All right, we are live. We are live. We are live. Just in case you guys didn't notice, we released a new podcast today with Mr. Greg Herleen from Horizon Trust. If you guys are ever considering um, looking for an alternative source of capital to potentially invest with, I am not a CPA. Full disclaimer, it's not legal advice. It's all for entertainment and informational purposes. But that is going to be a good option for you guys. If you guys want to check out the latest podcast episode on there, please subscribe and support the podcast by using the referral link in there. So today what we're going to do is we're going to go through and underwrite a deal in 63138. This is right in the St. Louis area, and the reason it jumped out to me was that it had a for sale by owner sign. So I said, okay, well, if it's for sale by owner, maybe there is a opportunity for a creative finance deal where we can potentially offer some creative terms for a seller financing deal. Now, if we are underwriting, right, just like every single time, when you're underwriting a deal, you need to go to HUD FMR. So if you go to HUD FMR in your Google, HUD FMR, what we're going to do is click on this and we'll go scrolling down to the small area FMRs. By going to the small area FMRs, you're able to pick out the county. So today I want to pick St. Louis County, just so we're going to go through the same process with everybody, just in case people forget, and it's always good to have some practice, right? So this property is in 63138 at 63138. 63138, here's the rent. The 3-bedroom rent for a 63138 home is $1,420. That's the ceiling. And then a 4-bedroom is $1,650. So I am now also going to go up to affordablehousing.com. And when you go to affordablehousing.com, you'll be able to find the market rent estimator. What you simply have to do is then go and copy and paste the property and a bedroom count, which is a 3-bedroom. And now you're going to get these market rents. Okay. The reason why these market rents are important is because the housing authority is going to do what they call a rent reasonableness test. A rent reasonableness test says just because you are renting it out to a voucher holder does not mean you can charge higher rents than what is currently going for in the market. So what I typically go for is I would just note down all of these rents, 1154, 1108. So now my floor rent is going to be 1108. My ceiling rent here is going to be 1420. And then my 4-bedroom rent is 1650. Why am I grabbing the 4-bedroom rent and the 3-bedroom rent? It's because I always want to look for an opportunity to be a little bit more creative. And if there is a garage, if there is a basement that I can finish, to add extra bedrooms to get the additional rent, that's what I'm really doing here. So once I am able to grab all these rents, let me kind of go down here. I also want the rents for the market rate for a 4-bedroom in this area, not just a 3-bedroom. And I'm just going to go quickly note down all these numbers. So it's going to be 1961. So in every single time I underwrite a deal, I always write down all my market research. So it's all in one place so that if I present it to my partner so that he can kind of quickly review it, all the data points are already in place. He can look at, okay, what's my fair market rent? Okay, what's my market rent? Okay, is this potentially a deal? I don't know yet, but we'll find out. Okay, so this property right now is, let's see, what is this property? This property is at $110,000, 110,000. Okay, and for the most part, this property looks like it's in pretty good condition. There's supposedly a tenant in there already. It should be rent ready. So I'm going to assume, for the purpose of this underwriting, I'm going to assume that we are only needing to paint the property. If you want my calculator with all the rehab items and stuff like that, just DM me your email on Instagram at InvestCanHe. If you guys are having issues following this on Instagram, you can always see the full screen version on Instagram, 864. So I'm going to type in 864 right here, which is going to be my square footage. And I estimate that my square footage to paint the place is going to be $3. I'm assuming that there's no work needed for the flooring. I'm setting aside $500 to keep the landscaping clean if I do buy this property and turn it over. I'm setting aside $1,500 in terms of roofing repairs, just because I always expect something unexpected to come up, and I want to have a little bit of a hedge in there. This is a spreadsheet that I borrowed from another real estate investor, but I added in my own items for rehabs I have done for short-term rentals. And what I'm doing here, what's up, Eric? How you doing, man? I'm just underwriting a deal together, man. Trying to go live every single day. And now what we have is a $110,000 deal at 6,700 renovations right now. This is currently assuming a 25% down payment and a 7.5% interest rate on this deal. Okay. Now, what we're going to do next, we're going to go and analyze the deal using our ceiling rents here, which is 1420, right? Because that's what we saw in HUD. So that's going to be our first scenario. We're going to go down to property taxes, and we're just going to get Redfin's property tax estimates, which is at $81 right now. 81. And then we're going to get an insurance number, which is another 81. So whenever I get an insurance number, I always multiply it by 20% extra, so 1.2, so that the insurance assumption is typically for a primary residence owner, right? So I always assume that it's at least 20% as a rule of thumb. It could be more, could be less, for an insurance policy, for a landlord policy. I set aside 10% for my maintenance. I am going to assume, this is true for St. Louis, the housing authority requires the landlord to pay $65 towards sewer costs. So I'm going to leave $65 in there. Property management, 8%, and then my vacancy is currently 3%. What does this yield me right now? This yields me 9.8%. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly look at to make sure I'm not missing anything. There's no garages in there, so there isn't an opportunity to add an extra bedroom. If there's a garage, I might consider putting in X amount of dollars to convert the garage into livable space. Doesn't look like that's the case here. It doesn't look like there's a sunroom or anything that I'm missing. So I'm gonna go ahead and assume that my best case scenario is in fact a 3-bedroom property. Okay. A 3-bedroom property is 9.8%. So I'm gonna write down all these numbers here. 1420. My cash flow is $302, 302, and 9.8%. Now I want to go through my floor. My floor is going to be 1108, and that's because I got that number from affordablehousing.com, which showed me that within a, let's see how many mile radius this is. Within a 0.33 mile radius of this property, there are 25 units, and the average rents there is for 3 bedrooms is 1,100. So that's how I'm underwriting this deal, using 1,100, just in case the housing authority says, hey, your rent's not reasonable because no one else charges 1,420. Most people are charging around 1,100 or 1,200. So in my head, this is now my worst case scenario. My worst case scenario, after being conservative with my reserves, 10%, 8% property managed, $5, technically, I feel pretty good about this, right? For my worst case scenario, not that I like my upside. I'm thinking in my worst case scenario, I can buy this property using 25% down, conventional financing only, and that will yield me a 1.8%. So that helped me first get over my fear of not investing, right? That's why I look at the worst case scenario. Finally, I know another investor out there that says typically you're able to get 90% of whatever the FMR is. So I'll just do equals 1420 times 0.9, and now that's 1278. At 1278, that is my midpoint scenario, which I'm going to call my conservative scenario. That's about $190 cash flow, and this is currently a 6.15%. Okay, now this helps me understand what my current scenario looks like using conventional financing. Okay, but the interesting part is that this property is currently a for sale by owner. So if I were to able to call the seller or the owner, I might try to offer some kind of creative terms, because right now, as is, it's just not a deal. There isn't any investors right now that I know that would do a deal for 9 or 8% for that much cash out of pocket. There's just better deals out there. So what I would do is I'm going to go and try to figure out what is going on here for the existing loan. So this is a website called PropStream. I am now looking up details for this property. I have not looked it up before, so you're seeing me doing this for the first time, okay? When you look up the property's details, you'll see whether or not there is a mortgage that's already in place, typically by going to details and going to the mortgage transaction. Boom. Right here, you see that there is a loan on this property for $195,000 at 3.12%. That doesn't make any sense to me because this home is being listed right now at 110. So this property is either fully owned, this is not correct, or this property is clearly underwater, which is why they're trying to sell the property, which doesn't make any sense. But look, let's just assume that for some reason the sellers want to finance this at a more reasonable interest rate. So if I give the seller in this scenario 25% down, what, assuming I'm at the midpoint scenario at 1278 for rent, right? Just be conservative. What percentage interest rate do I need to be? What if this seller gave me the entire balance on a 0% interest rate with a balloon payment in roughly about 10 years, but no interest rate? So I'll give him 27.5K down if he finances the rest of it at 82.5K at 0% interest rate. Well, now all of a sudden I'm at 17.5% return. So I could offer 110 and ask the seller, like, hey, if I'm willing to give you the price that you want, would you give me terms? Because at this scenario, the purchase price is still working. Purchase price, $110,000. And what's my finance interest? Finance interest rate. This was 7.5. This is 0. And now I can calculate these scenarios and talk through to my head. The whole reason why you want to do this is because you want to understand just exactly how can you make money. In every single deal, there's a price that makes the deal make sense, and there is a term that will make the deal make sense. So that is just one way how hey, King, I do not have a mentorship. I'm not sell you guys. I just want to give away this information for free. If you want this calculator, please just DM me your email. My intention with all I'm doing right now is so that you guys all pay it forward because I am building a community of full of affordable housing investors. I am building the largest affordable investment community in the United States because I want to create an environment where we all have resources that we can lean on in multiple cities, multiple environments. And if I'm able to help you, I really just sincerely hope that one day when a new person comes in the group, you can take exactly what I've taught you and then just pay it forward. That is my honest desire here. I do this for the thank yous, and I really hope that you guys will just pay it forward. And this is how we'll truly solve the affordable housing crisis problem in there. When we all kind of keep our resources and the knowledge to ourselves, it does not progress humanity forward. So I want to just lead by example and by showing you guys exactly what I'm doing. So this is how we went about exploring whether or not this is a deal, right? Just to kind of recap everyone on what we did. We found a deal within a little part northish of St. Louis. We went to HUD FMR. We went to small area FMRs. Just by Googling HUD FMR, you can go scroll down to the bottom page, click small area FMR, and you'll be able to see the 2024 numbers for your particular zip code by bedroom count and by zip code. Afterwards, you want to get the market rents. By getting a market rent, that's how you're able to figure out what is my floor for what I can charge for affordable housing rent. Then what we did was we quickly went through the photos, and because in this scenario, the property was already in well good shape. It looks like the tenant's already renting it for about $1,000 a month. So it's not too far fetched that you can get $1,100 or $1,200 a month on this property, which is great. We got all of our property taxes and insurance numbers just from the Redfin estimate. We added a 20% premium to the homeowner's insurance, and then we put it into this calculator. Because this was not a deal using conventional financing, we thought about looking at it from an alternative perspective, which is creative finance. I'm in the sub-2 group, and that's where I really learned a lot about creative finance and how to potentially find terms. We then go to PropStream. We went to PropStream first to try to get some mortgage information about this property. But I noticed that the data is not accurate or it doesn't make any sense. Because how would you have a loan for $195,000 for this property when this property is only being listed for $110,000? That could either mean the property is severely underwater, or this information is inaccurate, which happens quite frequently. You never know, right? Someone might not be keeping on top of all these data points. And they can just DM me and we can talk about how we can work together. But honestly, my true intention is just to help you guys first. And I think you can just simply learn by watching my YouTube channel and just watching my lives every day. I've been trying to go live every single day underwriting a deal. It's a great habit to develop. And even if you don't do it, just watch me do it. And then all of a sudden, you guys can look back in time and say, hey, over the last 100 days, I underwrote 100 properties just by watching Kent do it. And I guarantee that you will be a lot more comfortable in your own skin about underwriting. So for this property, because this didn't make any sense for this property, there was no subject to capability. I didn't believe that the property had a mortgage I can take over that made sense. Because why would I take over a loan that's worth that's $195,000 when it's being listed for 110, right? I wouldn't offer $80,000 over the market price just simply because there's an interest rate for 3%. That's not smart. So what I then did was I played around with the interest rate. And if you say, hey, what if the seller finances me at 5%? Well, it's a 10.5% return at that scenario. If I played around with it and now all of a sudden my interest rate is 3.5%, well, okay, it's 12.9%. And then what if I charge 2.5%? Now it's at 14.3. So you determine the criteria that you want to buy this property at. And then from that point onwards, you play around with all the terms and the purchase prices to figure out what will make it a deal. For me, I want at least a 17.5% return. So the closest thing that gets me there after setting aside all these numbers is at 0% at 17.4%. Great, awesome. Now let's play it the other way, right? What if this stayed at 7.5%? How much less do I need to pay for the property to make this 17.5% return? What if I bought this property for 80 grand? Cool. What if I bought this property for 70 grand? 18.85. Okay, let's go back up a little bit. 75, 72,500, 72,500. So there's a couple of options here, right? I can go to the seller like, hey, Mr. Seller, I can't do this. The deal just simply doesn't make sense at the current numbers. But what I could do is, if you want, the only number that will work for me if I do conventional financing is at $72,500, right? Give your seller the option. Let them pick. Don't give them an offer that just strictly puts them into a hole. Okay, so now I can say, Mr. Seller, I'm willing to give you 72.5K for this property for it to make sense for me. Or, Mr. Seller, I can pay you $110,000 if you're willing to give me terms. And by terms, meaning I'll give you 25% down for this property so you can feel like you have stake in the game. But I have to give you a principal. I need you to finance the last $82,500. Just to kind of pull this back up so you guys can follow. 110 at 110 at 0% interest rate. Mr. Seller, if you were willing to finance the rest of the 82.5 thousand over 30 years with a 10-year balloon, I can make you principal only payments for 10 years. So you lay it out for them. That's honestly what I would do. And chances are they'll probably say no. And that's okay. But you now just had a practice in terms of what's your best case scenario, midpoint scenario, and worst case scenario. Then using my midpoint scenario for what's a reasonable rent, I was able to calculate what's the purchase price that I need to make it work using a conventional deal, or what makes it work if I use a seller finance deal. So yes, the this live is recorded. You can find this on youtube.com/@Kent_HE. Please just subscribe there to the YouTube channel so you can always be notified when I'm going live. I just started, I just released a podcast today where I talked a lot about how to finance and raise capital through self-directed IRAs. And Greg Herleen from Horizon Trust, who that's where I have my self-directed IRA account with too, that's where there is a huge untapped potential, right? For some of your folks that might be working full-time jobs and you know people that might have left their jobs that had a 401k, that could be a perfect opportunity for them to roll their old 401k into a self-directed IRA. And that self-directed IRA can now serve as another tap or resource for capital for any of your own deals. So if you might say like, hey, how am I going to get that 27.5K that we just talked about in previous underwriting. Well, maybe you want to offer your private money lender equity into the deal. I don't know what that looks like, but you have to listen to your investors and see whether or not there's an option that fits their needs. And a self-directed IRA is typically for folks that want to take more control uh, over their retirement funds, so that they're not just limited to index funds or stocks or equity that Fidelity or Merrill Edge allows them to do. They can now invest in real estate. They can now invest with you. Again, this is not a solicitation for investments of any kind, not investment advice. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA. So it's just another source for you guys to consider. So please support the podcast. You can use my referral link with Horizon Trust. I don't make any money on this podcast. Very, very little referral commissions. I just use it to pay the editor. So thank you so much for the time today, guys. I hope this underwriting exercise was helpful. DM me your email if you want Hey, Luis, you got to turn on your notifications on YouTube. I think that's what you got to do in order for you to get notifications when I go live. And then that's how you get um, confidence in your underwriting, by just doing it over and over. And then when you have your friends and family that have those self-directed IRAs, what I would recommend for you to do is just simply copy what I'm doing. Heck, you could even just take the same property that I just did, take the same spreadsheet that I did, just record yourself talking through it and upload it onto your YouTube. And then now all of a sudden you have a resume of properties that you have personally underwritten, so that when someone thinks about why should I invest with you, they're going to be like, oh, here's the track record of Luis or King, who have done all this underwriting. They have seen 200 deals that are not deals before they came to me and said, hey, I got a deal. That makes you look way more credible when it comes to raising capital. And that will allow you guys to build confidence in yourself, but also for your investors. And now all of a sudden you're an expert in self-directed IRAs. And now you're really putting the pieces together for the puzzle so that you can figure out what you're going to do. Luis, I was underwriting a single family. I don't typically do multifamily on these lives because they take a really long time. It's a big commitment on my behalf. And there's just so many moving parts. But maybe we go do one of them eventually one day. I'll probably do like a longer, maybe not a live with Alvin, but I can do something there to go through multifamily. So hope you all had a great night. I try to go live every single day. I really, really appreciate the support. We just crossed 2,000 subscribers and across Apple and YouTube, and I feel incredibly blessed for all the guests that came onto the podcast. I'm so thankful for all of you guys for listening, and I seriously do it for all the thank yous. It means the world to me when you guys tell me like this content was useful. And please, please send me any questions that you will want me to ask future guests. Like, I really read every single comment. Every single time you guys leave a comment about like, hey, what about this? I have taken it to the next guest. For example, somebody DM me is like, hey, I would really want to know how are landlords handling rent increases right now. When Dr. Joe Azumoto came onto the podcast, that was one question directed to him, and I made sure I fit into him. So this podcast is meant for me to ask questions on your behalf. So please just let me know. This podcast is not about me. It's about you guys and what I can do for you guys. So if you guys also want to join our free Facebook group, it's called Affordable Housing and Real Estate Investing. You can DM me anytime with the word affordable, and I will send you the link. Cool. Thank you so much, guys. And please DM me if you guys want a calculator. Have an amazing night.